You're listening to the Platform Launchers podcast. I'm John Stange, and it's great to have you with us. As always, we're here to talk about building, growing, and monetizing your online platform. We get together every week, and we have a lot of fun talking about these things. I just enjoyed a really exciting update from our members club. Before we go live here with the podcast, we go through just our wins and our goals and some of the things that we've been working on. And very exciting. Lots of progress made in the group this week. It was a very vibrant discussion this week. Lots of fun things taking place. If you'd ever be interested in joining our members club and being part of it, you could take a free trial of that, and that's at platformlaunchers.com, and just click the membership tab right at the top of the screen. And we'd love to give you a chance to join us for these live calls, and you'd get access to our video vault at that point and all our training and all that. We really hope it helps you build, grow, and monetize your online platform, because that's what we're all about here in Platform Launchers, and we have a lot of fun doing that. One of the common areas of platform development that we're going to be talking about tonight, it's one of the most common ones that many of us who develop an online presence actually utilize, is this idea of writing books. Now, last week, if you listen to the podcast, we were talking about different ways that you could even write a book quickly. We were talking about ways that you could write a book in a month or less. And if you haven't had a chance to check out that episode, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening via the podcast, I'd encourage you to check that out, because you might get some ideas. But we're talking about authorship again this week. And this week, we're talking about specifically what should you do with your book now that you've written it. So if you're listening to us right now, and you're planning to write a book, there's some next step ideas that I'm going to suggest. And if you've already written a book, or maybe more than one, I have some next step ideas for you as well. Because here's the thing: writing a book is high on the list of life goals for many people who consider themselves entrepreneurs, and it's high on the list of life goals for many people who don't even consider themselves entrepreneurial. And some people have all sorts of thoughts about writing a book out, but some do it and some don't. Some people dream of putting their ideas down on paper because they want to preserve maybe certain aspects of their family history. That can be a really enjoyable thing to experience and see. I think others have gained insights over the course of their life, maybe through their vocation or through their hobbies or through just some of their personal interests. And they've gained those insights that they'd like to then share and record that in book form for the benefit of others, which is a wonderful thing. I think some others might enjoy writing a book just because they find particular delight in entertaining people. So that's certainly a possibility. I have to say, from a personal standpoint, I have several different motivations for writing books depending on the topic. If you're familiar with the books that I've written at present, most of the books I've written are geared toward helping people in multiple categories. And some of the main categories are obviously online platform development, the type of things that we're talking about here right now for our podcast. But I also write books that aim to help people with their spiritual walk, with their faith. I really enjoy that subject. That's in many respects, you could say that's the main thing that I write about and care about. And so I'm happy to invest in the lives of other people in written contexts on just areas of spiritual growth. But I also like writing about family life. So some of the books that I've written deal with marriage, some deal with just family life in general. And I would say that maybe I should even add a fourth category of primary subjects. I also enjoy writing about leadership, and several of the books I've written are very leadership focused. So those are some of the subtopics, or main topics, I should say, that I've written about. There's also some subtopics that go under each of these categories, and I value those subtopics as well. But again, those are some of the main areas that I enjoy addressing with my written content. And again, speaking of written content, kind of setting up this idea of what to do with books after you've written them. On average, if you're following my pattern, I like to release several new books per year. And I tend to set ambitious goals for myself as far as how many I want to release in a year. And I have several right now in the pipeline that are just about ready to go. I'm really excited to get those released, and they're going to be coming out this summer. So I'm excited about that. So keep your eyes peeled if you're interested in reading any of them. But writing and releasing books, that's only part of the equation. And those of you that have experience as authors, you know this. Writing and releasing the books is just kind of where this all starts. I think many people mistakenly believe that once they write their book, their work is done. Some people think, as soon as you write it, then the work is done. But I would contend, and I think this is very fair to say, I would contend that that's where the real work begins. Once you've got the book written, once it's actually something you could pick up in your hand and hand it to somebody or read to somebody or share in physical or digital form. I think that's where the real work begins because there's so much that can be done with a book after it's been written. But the interesting thing is, it's probably fair to say that many authors never really get around to doing any of these secondary things that I'm about to share. They write the book, they think that that's it, and then they wonder if the book's really being utilized to the degree that it should be. And I think that that's unfortunate that many authors don't really put that creative thinking cap on and really coming up with they many don't come up with an idea for the book after it's written, and it sometimes stagnates the written content that they've spent so much time creating. I think they miss out, many authors miss out on some absolutely amazing opportunities. And so, what we're going to do with our time together this week is we're actually going to attempt to fix that issue right now. I don't know if we could do that in a single podcast episode, but I'm certainly going to attempt to help us in that respect. So, please allow me to spend a few moments making a few suggestions that I hope you'll find helpful. I think some of them you might find particularly helpful. But let's start with, all right, so you've got the book written. What should you do next with it? Well, the first thing I think you should do is you should use it to build your authority. So let me elaborate on that. Let's just begin, though, with the subject of authority and building authority, because one of the most amazing things you'll discover after you experience the process of publishing a book, once you get a book out there, I think you're going to discover an increase in your perceived authority on whatever that subject addresses. So it may be that your book represents knowledge that you've had for a long time, and it may represent something that you even do vocationally, and maybe even something that among your circle of family and friends that you are known for being quite adept in. But I think you'll discover in a very positive way that when you publish a book on any subject, you immediately increase your perceived authority on that subject to many people, people that know you well and maybe people that don't know you well. And the ironic thing about it is, obviously, if you've written a book, you're going to want people to read the book. But even if no one actually reads your book, even if the book just exists and nobody reads it, the very fact that it exists is going to increase your authority in your subject area. And if you're looking to develop an online platform, so whether it's an author platform or a general platform that includes being an author as a subset of your platform, obviously, if you want that to continue to grow and you want to be able to devote a decent amount of time to it, you're probably also interested in earning some level of income from your online platform. And I try and encourage people to earn income from their platform because that means they get to reinvest in what they're doing. It also means that they're going to be able to spend some extra time devoted to their platform if they can earn at least some income from it. But authority, when we're thinking about writing books, and how writing a book leads to authority. Well, one of the benefits that comes with authority is added income. Now, again, what you're doing, I'm certain you're not doing it just for income's sake, but authority does lead to income. So if you use your book to build authority, don't be surprised if you see an income boost right along with it. Writing a book and publishing it on Amazon, just for one example, it often contributes to the added benefit of your content showing up on the front page of most search engines. When you actually get a book on Amazon, it does tend to result in that content and your name showing up on the first page of most search engines when people particularly are searching for your name. There are probably many people that have similar names to you, but if you write a book, it's going to be you that shows up on the front page of Google or other search engines. And when you develop that kind of authority, it may also contribute to additional book sales because now you're on that front page of whatever search engine people are utilizing, and that may also result in speaking invitations. It may also result in coaching opportunities. In fact, I don't think really anyone gets recurring coaching opportunities if they aren't somebody who actually takes the time to build their online authority. So authority leads to coaching opportunities as well. It also can lead to podcast guesting requests and invitations to collaborate on additional products. So what I'm saying is, for starters here, when you think about the additional things that can be done with your book after you've written a book, it's like what happens next? Well, let it build your authority so that it leads to some of these additional things. Your book can become a powerful tool for building that online authority, and authority typically results in opportunities, and it typically results in income. But that's not all it's useful for. Your book could be useful for other things. Something else it could be useful for is this idea of gaining healthy attention. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean this idea of getting healthy attention? Well, let me back up a tiny bit here and tell you about a conversation I recently had. So I had a conversation recently with a group of students in a communications class that I'm teaching at Cairn University in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. That's a plug for my alma mater, but I also teach there. CAIRN. Check it out. But our discussion is that I was having with these students in this communications course, our discussion centered around unhealthy ways that people attempt to gain attention, specifically through social media. And we were just talking about a variety of ways that people sometimes do that. In the midst of that discussion of unhealthy ways that people are trying to gain attention, I mentioned to them I mentioned to them the fact that there are much healthier and more edifying ways to get the attention of others. And writing a book is one of those ways. Now, if you've written a book, I hope it sells tons of copies. I hope that that's your experience. But let me encourage you, as a fellow author, whether or not that's the case for you, don't worry about it. Don't actually worry about whether or not your book sells a ton of copies. Again, I hope it sells a ton of copies, but don't really worry about that. Much of that's actually outside of your control anyway. But still, let me encourage you to keep copies of your book or books handy so that you can readily give them away for free, which might sound counterintuitive if you've written a book and you intend to earn an income from it. But hear me out on this. Keep copies around. In fact, right now I'm recording this from my home office, and there's a bookshelf. So if you're watching us on YouTube, I have a bookshelf right over there that has quite a few, probably several hundred copies of a mix of my books. And I would encourage you to consider, if your budget allows, so you got to budget some money to do this, keep a bunch of copies of your books handy so that you can give them away for free. Be generous with what you've written. Be generous with your book or your books. Share it with others to intentionally encourage them, and understand that when you go out of your way to do that, you're very likely to experience the double benefit of bringing attention to the work that you do and the brand that you're attempting to establish and promote. So let me issue a challenge, if I may. And again, you're going to have to do some budgeting to make this happen, but make it your goal to give away hundreds of copies of your books over the course of the next year, depending on what your budget may allow. And in some cases, just one good speaking opportunity might completely cover the cost of doing that. So you never know what kind of leads are going to be generated from your generosity. But if you choose to serve people by giving that away for free, that can get some healthy attention on you, on your brand, on your platform, and it could result in some good connections. I think the most books that I've ever given away in a single day was 6,000 copies. And I gave away 6,000 copies of a book I had written on marriage in a single day. Now, before you think of me giving them all away in printed edition, most of those were digital editions that I gave away on on that particular day. So I imagine it'd be a small fortune to try and give away 6,000 printed copies, but you could also do this digitally. And that's what I did on one particular day. A marriage book that I had written got shared on a popular blog, and I just decided to give the book away for free to anyone that downloaded it, anyone that wanted a copy of it. And in the course of one day, I was able to give away over 6,000 copies of the book. And it was highly beneficial. My generosity resulted in benefit to those that I was trying to serve, but it also resulted in gaining some healthy attention for all the other things that I'm trying to do online and just in life as I'm trying to serve an audience of people. All right. A third thing that you can do with a book after you've written it, and if Mr. Lucas Marino, who has been a faithful member of Platform Launchers. If he's listening right now, he's going to love this suggestion because he writes on this particular topic quite a bit. But you can create online courses with the books that you've written. And hear me out on this. This is something that is a very valuable thing to consider. Online course creation continues to grow in popularity. It grows and grows and grows. Every year it has more growth. And there's all sorts of platforms where online courses are being shared and developed. I utilize Kajabi to promote and sell a bunch of courses. People use Udemy. People use, I don't know, there's just a whole bunch of them out there, right? I love personally taking online courses and I love creating them. I love both. Last month, it was our challenge here within our members club and Platform Launchers. We encouraged our members to create mini courses based on some of their content. And a bunch of people in our group took the time to do that. And it's been a beautiful thing to watch as that's developed. At present, I have several courses, some of which are directly connected to things that I've written. And I'm currently in the process of creating several more. Again, I have some books and I have some courses coming out this summer. It's going to feel like a content explosion on some of my platforms here. But here's the thing: depending on the subject of your book or your books, you may find that the content you've created and the problems that you're able to solve in that written content, that it actually lends itself quite nicely to being a course. And I want you to think about something additional related to that. In fact, there are some people who will never pay you, let's say you charge 15 bucks for a printed copy of your book. There are some people who will never pay you $15 for your book, but they'll gladly pay you $200 or more for your course. Doesn't that seem a bit ironic? When people could have the same information for $15, maybe even less, and they won't pay that because they don't want to read. But if you put something in a video course or even an audio course, I know some people like to do that. People gladly pay you $200 or more, particularly for a video course. As odd as that may sound, I can confirm that it's absolutely true. The added human touch of hearing you personally explain your concepts, that's going to appeal to many learning styles. And I think most people would say that they might actually prefer that. And amazingly, you might also discover that there are some people who will gladly pay you for both options. They'll buy the book and they'll take the course. I've done that for some of my favorite authors where I've purchased their book, liked their content so much that I then looked to see what other products they happen to have. And then I bought their courses and checked their things out like that. Happens all the time. There are some people that will really resonate and really connect with the content that you produce. Don't be surprised if they're looking for more of it from you and if they're looking for an opportunity to feel like they can connect with you on a more personal level. And developing courses from your books is one of the main things that I would encourage you to consider doing if you want to give your book kind of a second life. Here's another thing that you can use a book to do. After you've created your book content, you can use the book to develop your online presence. Now, anyone who knows me well or listens to my Platform Launchers podcast, which if you're hearing the sound of my voice right now, that's exactly what you're doing, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube, but you're not going to be surprised by this suggestion that I would say to utilize your book to develop your online presence. But here's the thing: book content it can be particularly helpful when you're trying to figure out what to share online. So if you'd like to establish an online platform related to content that you've been writing about, if you're looking to develop an author platform, if you're looking to develop something connected to the book that you've written or the books that you've written, your book, think about this, your book has essentially outlined some of the work for you. I think a lot of times when people are trying to create online content or develop an online presence, they think, what am I going to talk about or what am I going to teach about? Well, if you have a book, you've already outlined it. You've already figured out what could be of benefit to other people. You just need to take that book content and develop pieces of it into your online presence. Now, here's something else that maybe you've heard me say, or maybe you've never heard me say this, but if you've never heard me say it, I'd like you to hear me say it now. Blog posts and YouTube videos are two of the absolute best ways to get discovered online and to build an online audience. So if you're trying to figure out, if you've been scratching your head as to how you can develop an online audience of some kind, I'd encourage you to explore creating more blog content, various blog posts, They're highly searchable and they tend to rank very well in the major search engines. Or YouTube videos. They're two of the best ways to get discovered online and build an audience. And you don't have to create content from scratch to gain some traction in both of these areas. What I'd encourage you to do, especially again, if you're trying to build an online presence, look at what you've already written in your book and then plan out some blog posts that can elaborate on some of those ideas even further. Or you could even do this. You could share recent stories from your life related to those topics. So you could say, in my book, I talked about this. Well, let me tell you something that's happened in my life since I wrote that book. And so you could share recent stories from your life related to those main concepts, and you could use that to promote your book, but then your book could also be used to be promoting your online presence, your online platform. It could go back and forth as you kind of elaborate on that in blog content or video content. Again, if you're comfortable being on camera, I recognize not everybody's comfortable being on camera, but I'd encourage you, get comfortable being on camera because you've got something valuable to say, and there are people that'll utilize your content in that format if you regularly create video content. But if you're comfortable being on camera, what you can do is you just take some of those topics and just record some conversational thoughts that you can post on YouTube. If you've been following what's going on YouTube in recent days, some of the most popular videos that I'm seeing online right now aren't elaborate. They don't involve a whole lot of production. They don't even involve a whole lot of creativity if you really think about it. Some of the most popular videos right now are actually conversational videos that people are posting and recording from the privacy of their cars. So they'll just take their car, drive someplace, and park maybe with like a nice scenery behind them. Or sometimes there's no scenery behind them, but they're just in the privacy of their car. So they're getting good audio. Things aren't echoey. They're not dealing with wind noise. They're not dealing with room echoes. You get a good recording typically in a car if you have the windows up. And I'm seeing people post videos from their car, just conversational videos where people are talking about subjects that they tend to be either interested in or subject matter experts in. And it's a trend that continues. It's growing. It's something that a lot of people are utilizing in some of those videos. I just started following one guy that records financial videos from his car. And I'm looking at the metrics on this, and these are things that he's recording, and in a single day, he'll have 50,000 views on some of these videos. And I'm like, that's a pretty good number to see in a single day. I watched one of his videos that I guess was, more than a few days old. It might have been a few weeks old, and he had 250,000 views on this one video. And it's something he just records from his car. He just goes and he sits in his car. He's got his winter coat on because I guess it's kind of chilly where he lives. And he's just recording financial videos from his car. And people appreciate the conversational nature to it. There's no production to it. It's just him in his car. There's no intro. There's no outro. He just says hi, starts talking, and then says bye. And his information is timely. It's relevant. The videos are anywhere from like 8 or 9 minutes to sometimes 20 minutes. He just talks from his car and he's just recording with his phone. And I notice that he tends to record maybe 3 of these a day. And it's his prolific content that he's releasing this way is really gaining some traction. And this is, again, a trend that continues to grow. And if you've written a book, that means you don't even have to like come up with content from scratch. You've already got interesting content that you could pull from if you decide to do something like this. It can really be useful for developing your online presence. And I know if you're listening to this podcast, that's certainly something that you have to have thought about in one respect or another. And it could be such a useful tool for doing that if you basically just share that content in a conversational way via video or via a blog. So let me just wrap up here. These are just a few suggestions that I have. And in just a moment, I'm going to have some further conversation with our members club and our members only Q&A. So if you're listening to this via the podcast or watching us on YouTube, I hope you'll jump into one of these weeks. Just go to platformlaunchers.com and join our members club. Take a 2-week test drive, see if it works out for you. We'd love to have you on board as a member and see if we could help you build, grow, and monetize your online platform. But let me just wrap up with a few additional thoughts about using your book. If you've written a book or multiple books, please consider some of these ideas. Maybe one of these options would be useful for you, or maybe more than one of these options would be useful for you. These are all the type of things that I like doing, and I've watched them really work. These are things that I love, and I highly endorse, and I highly recommend them because they can give your book more exposure. They could give your book a second life beyond the printed page. So give this some thought and don't let your book just sit there. Especially, if you've written a book and you're wondering, why am I not making book sales? Why are people not noticing this? Ask yourself the question if you've really given your book a second life beyond the printed page. There may be people who don't know about your book because you've never blogged about it. You've never said something on YouTube about it. You've never taken advantage of the authority that your book is helping you to establish. You've never really developed your online presence. You're not getting on podcasts to talk about the book because these things aren't really connected together, and they're just kind of loose and disjointed. And maybe you're just thinking to yourself, I've written the book and that's all I need to do. Give your book a second life. Let it be something that gets utilized in more than one way. Maybe you create a course out of the content. Maybe there are some people that'll utilize the content if you create a video course related to it that would never actually take the time to write or to read what you've written down. Just let these ideas simmer in your mind for a second. And if you get the chance to follow up on them, I'd highly encourage you to do it. I've done these things, they've worked well, and I hope that they work well for you as well. But that's it for us this week. Thank you again for tuning in to the Platform Launchers podcast. We're always grateful to be able to spend some time with you. We look forward to catching up with you online. Join us at platformlaunchers.com for a whole bunch of content that we have over there. And in the meantime, we hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you again right here next time. Take care.